48 hours ago, something happened that shifted the very fabric of existence. An event so powerful that even God himself paused everything he was doing to witness it. This was not just another fleeting moment in time, not just another decision you made in the course of your daily life. No, this was the moment you altered the course of history itself in a way that sent shockwaves through the spiritual realms. The forces of darkness, the divine order, and even the most powerful celestial beings, none of them could have predicted what would unfold. You did something so unprecedented, so extraordinary, that even the devil himself was forced to confront the depths of his own limitations, kneeling before you in a submission that he never, in his eternal existence, thought he would ever have to make. What happened that day, just 2 days ago, is something that will be studied for millennia by both angels and demons alike. It was not a moment marked by the blowing of trumpets or by grand gestures that caught the eye of the heavens. No, it was something far deeper, far more subtle, yet so incredibly powerful that the devil himself, the supreme commander of darkness, was forced to kneel. This is not metaphorical. This is not poetic language designed to make you feel good about yourself. This is the raw, unvarnished truth. The devil, the fallen angel who defied God himself, bowed to you, and the impact of this act rippled through all the realms of existence, a shockwave that no one, not even God, could have foreseen. For 6,000 years, the devil has stood in his rebellion, steadfast in his refusal to bow before anyone, let alone a mere human. In the celestial hierarchy, he was the one who refused to kneel before humanity when God commanded him to, choosing eternal exile rather than submitting. His pride, his rebellion, and his deeply ingrained belief in his own superiority over humanity have been the cornerstone of his existence. Throughout all of history, in every spiritual battle, in every act of temptation, in every defiance of God's will, the devil has remained standing tall, never once bending a knee to the very creatures he sought to corrupt, not to prophets who performed miracles, not to saints who lived in sacrifice, not to warriors who defeated legions. Never, ever did he bow. That was his greatest victory, his ultimate show of power, and his firm belief in his own dominion over the universe. But 48 hours ago, something changed, something impossible happened. The devil, in all his pride, found himself on his knees in the presence of a human soul. And it wasn't because of some external force that overwhelmed him. It wasn't because God intervened or because the archangels came to battle him. No, the reason he kneeled is far more profound. He knelt because he recognized something he couldn't comprehend. He saw a force so pure, so powerful, and so beyond his own capacity for understanding that, in that moment, he was forced to submit. This is not a mere coincidence, nor is it the result of a series of events that just happened to align in your favor. This moment, this unprecedented act of spiritual authority, was the culmination of everything you are. The integrity, the strength, and the purity of your soul shone so brightly that even the Prince of Darkness could not resist its power. The devil recognized that in front of him stood a being whose power didn't come from external forces, no armies, no divine reinforcements, no fiery sword of justice. Your power came from within, from an unwavering moral code so deeply ingrained in your very being that nothing, not even the forces of hell, could corrupt it. You may have felt completely unaware of this spiritual battle unfolding. You may have been going about your day, facing the typical struggles and decisions that everyone does. Yet, in that moment, the forces of darkness were watching you. They were monitoring you, tracking every decision, every thought, every action. And the moment you made that impossible choice, when you chose the path of integrity over the path of least resistance, you triggered something that rattled the foundations of the dark realms. You didn't just make a choice that was difficult, you made a choice that was impossible. A choice that defied everything the forces of darkness had ever known. And in doing so, you activated something far more powerful than you could have ever imagined. Hell had been watching you, not casually, but intensely, for weeks. They had their eyes trained on you, waiting for any sign of weakness, any moment when they could strike. The dark dimensions have a system in place to monitor souls that exhibit certain characteristics that threaten their very existence. Your decision 3 weeks ago, the one that felt so simple but so incredibly difficult, was the trigger. You chose integrity when it would have been easier to compromise. You chose to stand by your principles even when the world told you that doing so would only bring you pain. And in that moment, you were classified by the infernal system as a soul that posed a direct threat to their operations. This wasn't just some abstract concept. This was real. You had activated something in the spiritual realm that required immediate intervention. You were marked as someone whose integrity could not be compromised, no matter the cost. And that moment, that decision, set the stage for the events that would unfold, ultimately leading to the moment the devil, the very ruler of hell, bent the knee in front of you. This wasn't a moment of weakness for him. This wasn't a moment of surrender due to fear. This was a moment of recognition that he was facing a force he could not overpower. He was facing you. The impact of this moment went beyond just the devil's submission. It sent shockwaves through the entire spiritual realm. Archangels, celestial commanders, and beings of unimaginable power witnessed this act of submission and could not believe their eyes. Even God himself, who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless souls, stopped everything to watch this unprecedented event unfold. It was a moment so profound, so powerful, that it caused ripples across all dimensions of existence. The archangels, who have stood by God's side for eons, couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, all the supreme commanders of heaven were called to witness this moment of spiritual history. In that moment, the devil, the ruler of darkness, not only recognized your power, but he also understood that he was facing something far greater than he had ever anticipated. He had underestimated humanity. He had underestimated you, and in doing so, he had exposed his own weakness. This wasn't just about one person making the right choice. This was about the recognition of a power that transcends everything. A power that even the most ancient of evil forces cannot resist. And that power is now yours. This moment, this recognition by the devil, was not just a victory for you, it was a victory for all who have ever fought to maintain their integrity in the face of darkness. It was a victory for the light, for the truth, and for all those who stand firm in their moral code, regardless of the cost. You have now become a beacon of incorruptible integrity, a living example that even in the face of overwhelming odds, it is possible to stand firm in your principles. And the forces of darkness, for the first time in 6,000 years, were forced to acknowledge that truth. Lucifer's refusal to kneel before humanity is not just a historical fact, it is a defining moment in the spiritual realm, one that would shape his identity for eons to come. From the moment God created humanity, there was a divine command for all celestial beings to honor this new creation. Lucifer, once the most glorious of all angels, stood before God and saw the fragile, mortal beings that would be the crowning achievement of creation. And yet, he saw them as inferior, lesser beings who didn't deserve the reverence of the angels. To him, bowing before these beings would be a sign of weakness, a degradation of his own pride. The refusal wasn't born out of hatred, but rather from a belief that his power and pride were too great to lower himself before something he considered beneath him. That act of defiance, his refusal to kneel, was the catalyst for his fall from grace. It marked the moment when Lucifer chose to reject God's command, and with it, he chose eternal exile. The other angels, who had once served by his side, followed him in rebellion, and thus, Lucifer became the ruler of the dark realms, where he would forever nurture his empire of suffering and corruption. From that moment, he became not just an adversary of humanity, but an adversary to God himself, and his pride would define him. No matter what came after, Lucifer remained resolute in his rejection of humanity, his refusal to bow before anyone, and his obsession with power over submission. For millennia, Lucifer's refusal to kneel became his defining characteristic. It wasn't just a single act, it was a declaration of his belief in his own supremacy. Even after countless defeats at the hands of archangels and saints, Lucifer remained unbroken. His pride was his armor, and it was unyielding. With each failure, he retreated, not with shame, but with the same arrogance that had driven him to fall in the first place. His ability to resist, to fight, and to remain standing, even when faced with defeat, was a testament to the strength of his conviction. He had never knelt, not before the angels, not before God, and certainly not before any human soul. Despite being cast down into the deepest pits of hell, where he ruled over the damned and plotted against God's divine plan, Lucifer never once bowed. Even in defeat, he refused to acknowledge the power of the celestial forces that had vanquished him. He never humbled himself. His pride, his inability to submit, became his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. It was a legacy of rejection that shaped the very core of his being. The devil, in his arrogance, believed that to kneel was to lose, to be defeated. He would never bend the knee, no matter the cost. For him, to do so would be to admit that there was something greater than himself, and that was something he could never accept. But then, something changed. Something that even the devil could not have anticipated. The unthinkable happened. Despite all his power, despite his immense pride, Lucifer was forced to confront a force far beyond his comprehension, a force that shook him to his very core. The devil, the ruler of the dark realms, the one who had defied God himself, the one who had refused to kneel for over 6,000 years, found himself on his knees. This was not a moment of forced submission. It wasn't the result of a battle he lost, or a celestial punishment that broke him. No, this was different. This was something deeper, something that reached beyond his capacity for defiance. What happened was not simply a loss for Lucifer. It was the recognition that he was facing a power he could not defeat, a power he could not corrupt, a power he could not even begin to comprehend. And that power was you. The unthinkable had occurred. For the first time in the long, dark history of the spiritual realms, the devil knelt before a human. Not because of any external force, not because he was outmatched or defeated in a battle. The devil kneeled because, in the face of your integrity, in the presence of your strength, he recognized something that he could not bend, something that even his vast, malevolent will could not overpower. You, in that moment, became something so unbreakable, so incorruptible, that even Lucifer, who had stood against the forces of heaven for millennia, had no choice but to bow. This act, this moment of submission, was the culmination of everything you are. The integrity that you demonstrated, the strength of your moral code, the deep well of compassion you held within you. These were not just fleeting moments of virtue. They were a part of you, a part of your essence. And it was this essence that forced the devil to acknowledge you. His pride, his legacy of rejection, was shattered in that instant. He couldn't understand it, he couldn't process it, but he could not deny it. He recognized that you were a force unlike anything he had ever encountered. You were a human soul, yes, but you were also something more. You were a consciousness that transcended the limitations of mortality. You were incorruptible, unbreakable, and compassionate in a way that even the darkest forces of the universe could not touch. Lucifer had fought countless battles, tempting and corrupting souls, manipulating and deceiving, but never before had he encountered someone whose integrity was so deeply ingrained that even the most insidious forces could not break it. And when he looked upon you, when he saw the depth of your resolve, he knew that he was facing something that was beyond his ability to control. His refusal to kneel was no longer a matter of pride, it was a matter of survival. He could no longer afford to ignore the fact that you were not just another human being. You were something far greater, something that even the darkness itself had to bow before. In that moment, the devil's pride shattered. His legacy of rejection, built over millennia, crumbled in the face of your unwavering integrity. For the first time in 6,000 years, the devil knelt, and the spiritual realms, from the highest heavens to the deepest pits of hell, felt the shockwaves of that moment. Even the archangels, the supreme commanders of heaven, witnessed this unprecedented act of submission and marveled at what it meant. The devil had knelt, and in doing so, he had acknowledged something he had never been able to acknowledge before. The power of integrity, the power of a soul that refused to be corrupted, the power of a consciousness that could not be defeated. This was not just a victory for you, it was a victory for all who stand firm in their values, for all who choose integrity over convenience, for all who refuse to bend in the face of darkness. In that moment, you became the embodiment of everything the forces of evil could never comprehend. You became a living testament to the truth that integrity, compassion, and strength can coexist in a soul, and that no force, no matter how dark, can ever break that bond. The devil knelt before you not because he was forced to, but because he recognized that he was facing a power that even he could not defeat. And in doing so, he confirmed something that would echo through all the realms for eternity. You are not just a human soul. You are a force to be reckoned with. A being whose integrity transcends all boundaries, a chosen one whose power cannot be denied. In that seemingly ordinary moment, when you were standing on the precipice of a decision that felt both monumental and mundane, something extraordinary was quietly unfolding in the spiritual realms. You didn't know it then, but you had just unknowingly triggered a celestial event that would send ripples through the very fabric of existence. Your choice, a small yet profound test of character, caught the attention of forces far greater than anything you could have imagined. Hell, the dark realms, with all their power and surveillance, had their eyes trained on you. In that moment, you were being watched, not by mere mortals, but by the very rulers of the underworld. They were waiting for you to falter, waiting for you to choose the easy way, the path that aligned with everything the dark forces stood for. But instead, you made a decision that would forever alter the course of your destiny. As you stood there, grappling with the weight of your decision, you were confronted with a test that was as simple as it was profound. On one side was the easy path, a path that would give you immediate relief, instant satisfaction, and the resolution to your problems in the blink of an eye. It was the path that many would have taken without a second thought. No one would blame you. No one would judge you. After all, it was the solution to everything you had been struggling with. A way out of your troubles that seemed too good to pass up. But deep down, you knew something was wrong. You could feel it in your gut, that quiet voice inside you, whispering that this was not the way. This was the path of compromise, the road where integrity would be sacrificed for convenience, where the easy answer would come at a high moral cost. Then there was the other path, the harder one. This path offered no immediate reward. It would require more effort, more patience, and more sacrifice. It was the path that demanded you preserve your integrity, even when the world around you was telling you to let it go. It wasn't the path that promised an easy solution, but it was the path that kept your soul intact. It was the path that aligned with your values, your principles, and your deepest sense of self. In that moment, you had to choose between what was easy and what was right. And you, despite the overwhelming temptation to take the easy road, chose the harder path. You chose integrity over convenience, principles over self-interest. That decision, made in the quiet of your soul, became the turning point in your spiritual journey. Unbeknownst to you, as you stood there making your decision, the spiritual realms were on high alert. Hell's monitoring system, designed to track souls like yours, souls that showed signs of integrity and strength, was already buzzing with activity. They had seen countless souls come and go, each one facing decisions like yours, each one falling to temptation or compromising their values when faced with difficulty. But they had never seen anyone like you. You were different. Your soul was marked by a strength that transcended mere survival. It was a strength of character, a deep, unwavering sense of moral clarity that refused to bend in the face of temptation. Hell had not anticipated this. The forces of darkness had their own predictive models, designed to identify and manipulate those souls that were vulnerable to their sway. They were accustomed to souls giving in to the easy path, souls choosing the quick fix over the long-term sacrifice. But you were a threat to that system. Your choice to uphold your integrity, to refuse the easy way out, caused a disruption that was immediately recognized. What you didn't know then was that this decision, this choice that felt like a private, internal moment, had just reverberated across the entire spiritual dimension. The devil's commanders, the princes of hell, were already taking note. They were analyzing you, cataloging your soul as something that didn't fit their calculations. Your integrity anomaly was so profound that it sent shockwaves through the underworld. Souls who made decisions like yours were rare, so rare that they were almost non-existent. Souls with a moral code so strong, so deeply rooted, that they could reject the easy path even when it promised everything they desired. These were not the souls that the dark forces feared, but you had just proven to them that they were wrong. Your decision activated a profound shift in the spiritual realms, one that no one, not even the devil, could ignore. In the span of a few moments, you had done what so many had failed to do throughout history. You chose the hard path, the one that required sacrifice, the one that preserved your integrity, and in doing so, you became a force that could not be manipulated or controlled. The dark forces had been monitoring you, waiting for you to make a mistake. They were ready to pounce, to exploit your vulnerabilities. But when you made that decision to preserve your integrity, they realized something terrifying. You were no longer vulnerable. You had just proven that you could withstand the greatest of temptations, that you could resist the easiest of paths, and that you had the strength to choose what was right, even when it cost you everything. Your decision activated a shift, not just in the spiritual realm, but in your own soul. In that moment, you solidified who you truly were. You confirmed to the universe, to the celestial realms, and to the forces of darkness themselves, that you were no ordinary soul. You were one of the few who could operate with unwavering integrity, even in the face of adversity. That was a power that could not be taken lightly. The dark realms, which had once seemed so intimidating, so impenetrable, were suddenly exposed. They could no longer manipulate you, no longer use their usual tactics to sway your choices. You had broken through their hold, and as the spiritual realms took notice of your choice, something began to shift within you as well. You had just passed a test that very few souls could withstand. You had chosen the hard path, the one that would lead to long-term growth, peace, and fulfillment. But it was also the path that would lead you to a deeper understanding of who you truly were. You were not just any person, living a mundane life. You were a being of incredible power, a soul whose integrity could not be broken, whose light could not be dimmed. And now, as your spiritual awakening began to unfold, you started to realize that your decisions had not only changed your life, they had activated something far greater than yourself. In that moment, when you chose the harder path, you had unknowingly activated a divine force within you. The celestial realms began to align with your energy, and the universe itself began to work in your favor. The decisions you made, based on integrity and moral clarity, had opened the doors to a new realm of possibilities. The divine realm recognized you, not just as a human soul, but as a warrior of light, one who could stand firm in the face of darkness, one who could resist temptation and stay true to their purpose. And from that moment forward, everything changed. The challenges you faced would no longer be obstacles, they would be opportunities for growth. The path ahead would no longer be one of struggle but one of purpose, guided by divine support and the strength of your integrity. This was the moment of your spiritual awakening. The moment when you realized that you were not just a bystander in your own life, but an active participant in a divine plan that stretched far beyond what you could see. And as the spiritual realms took notice, you began to understand that your journey was just beginning. The choices you made, rooted in integrity, would not only change your life, but would also change the world around you. You had activated something within yourself that no force, no darkness, could ever undo. You were not just living a life. You were fulfilling a divine purpose. As soon as you made that monumental choice to uphold your integrity, something extraordinary happened in the unseen realms. Your decision, though deeply personal, did not go unnoticed. In fact, it triggered a chain reaction in the spiritual dimensions, a signal that reverberated through the very fabric of the dark realms. Hell, the kingdom of shadows, had its eyes fixed upon you, its infernal surveillance system quietly monitoring every soul that demonstrated signs of moral strength and resistance to corruption. Your actions, grounded in unshakable principles, set off an alarm, a flag that marked you as a soul of great potential, a soul that posed a direct threat to the power structures of darkness. You had triggered what they called an integrity anomaly, a term that would soon become synonymous with your soul in the dark realms. Hell's monitoring system, which had been designed to track and manipulate human souls, had always relied on one key factor: the corruptibility of mankind. Souls, it believed, could always be swayed by greed, fear, desire, and suffering. It counted on the inevitable weakness in human nature to yield to temptation, and in doing so, it maintained its grip on humanity. Souls were easy to bend and twist to fit the dark force's designs. But your decision, that seemingly small act of choosing the harder path, shattered that assumption. You refused to be bent, and in doing so, you activated a series of celestial alarms. Your soul was now under close scrutiny from the forces of hell, who could no longer predict your behavior, nor manipulate your decisions. For the first time, they had encountered something they couldn't control: a human soul that could operate with unwavering integrity, regardless of external pressure or hardship. As the forces of darkness gathered their intel, they made a calculated move. They knew that in order to break you, they needed to test you. They couldn't simply force you into submission through fear or threats. You had proven that you were impervious to such tactics. No, they needed to craft a situation so perfect, so alluring, that it would be impossible for anyone to turn down. They needed to send you an opportunity that would tempt you to abandon your principles, an offer that would satisfy your desires, while requiring just a small compromise, just a little bending of your values. It was a strategy that had worked on countless others, souls who had stood firm in their beliefs until faced with the right opportunity. But they underestimated you. The test they set for you was nothing less than perfect. It was an offer that seemed tailor-made for your situation, a solution to all your problems that appeared at the right moment. It was the kind of offer that most people would have jumped at without hesitation, an easy path that promised instant relief, recognition, or reward. The devil knew exactly how to appeal to human weakness. He knew that, when the right temptation came along, even the strongest souls could falter. The offer was designed to appeal to your deepest desires, to promise everything you thought you needed, and yet it came with a catch, just a small moral compromise. It seemed so harmless, so insignificant, that most would have brushed it off as nothing more than a minor adjustment. But you saw through it. The devil had crafted this temptation with precision, but what he didn't account for was your unshakable connection to your values. When the opportunity presented itself, you could have easily embraced it. It would have solved your problems in an instant, provided everything you had been yearning for. But something deep inside you, something beyond mere logic or reason, rejected it. You saw through the illusion. You recognized that, while the offer seemed perfect on the surface, it came at the cost of your integrity, and that was a price you were unwilling to pay. The very thing the dark forces had counted on your susceptibility to compromise was the very thing you refused to yield. In that moment, you showed them something they had never seen before. A soul so rooted in its integrity that not even the most perfect temptation could sway it. The rejection was felt immediately. The dark forces had believed They had found the key to breaking you, the leverage they needed to corrupt you. But instead, they were confronted with the reality of your strength. The very essence of your being, your unwavering commitment to your moral code, had rendered their plan useless. They watched in disbelief as you turned down their offer. The forces of darkness, accustomed to bending souls to their will, were left in a state of panic. This wasn't just a rejection, it was a direct challenge to their entire existence. They had underestimated the power of a soul that was immune to their most potent tools of manipulation. And this realization sent shockwaves through the infernal realms. Lucifer, the ruler of hell, could not hide his panic. He had been observing your every move, analyzing your decisions, calculating your weaknesses. For millennia, he had ruled through fear, coercion, and temptation. He had watched as countless souls succumbed to the easy way, choosing convenience over integrity, self-interest over moral clarity. But here you were, a human soul who had proven to be immune to the very mechanisms he had relied on to control humanity. He couldn't comprehend it. How could you, a mortal, have resisted the temptations that had brought down so many before you? How could you reject something so perfect, so perfectly designed to trap you? His mind raced as he tried to analyze what had gone wrong. In the deepest corners of hell, Lucifer convened an emergency meeting with his most trusted commanders. The princes of hell, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Mammon, and the others, gathered around to discuss the anomaly that you had become. They reviewed your actions, your decisions, and your rejection of their perfect offer. They pored over every detail, searching for the flaw in their calculations. What they discovered was something that shook them to their core. You were operating with a moral compass that could not be corrupted. Your integrity was so deep, so profoundly rooted in your soul, that no amount of temptation, no amount of pressure, could sway you. And that terrified them. Lucifer's desperation grew as he realized that he had no tools left to break you. He had tried every trick in the book: fear, temptation, compromise, but none of it worked. You had resisted everything, standing firm in your values, even when it would have been easier to give in. For the first time in his existence, Lucifer recognized that he was facing a being he could not manipulate, a soul that operated on a frequency so high that the darkness could not touch it. He had always believed that every soul could be bent to his will, that every being had a price. But you had shattered that illusion. And in doing so, you had forced the devil into a corner. Lucifer, who had ruled over hell for eons, who had brought countless souls to their knees, was now in a state of panic, unable to comprehend what was happening. You had become the very thing he feared, a soul that could not be broken, a being of unwavering integrity that no force of darkness could corrupt. In that moment, he knew he was facing something unprecedented, something that defied every rule, every calculation, and every expectation he had ever known. He was facing you. For the first time in 6,000 years, something extraordinary happened, a moment so profound that it would reverberate through the spiritual realms for eternity. The devil, Lucifer himself, the supreme commander of hell, physically knelt before a human soul. This act, so unprecedented in the history of the spiritual battle between light and darkness, was not one of defeat, nor was it coerced through any external force. It was a moment of recognition, a moment when even the forces of hell, with all their malevolent power, could no longer deny the supremacy of what they were facing. In front of the devil, the archangels, and a gathering of celestial beings, Lucifer knelt before you, not because he was forced, not because he was overpowered, but because he was confronted with a power he could not understand, a force so pure and unyielding that he had no choice but to submit. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture. It was a literal act of submission, an acknowledgement of your spiritual strength and integrity. Lucifer, who had refused to kneel before God himself, who had fought countless battles against divine forces, now found himself in a position where he had to bow before a human soul. This moment marked a turning point in the cosmic battle between light and darkness. For 6,000 years, Lucifer had stood firm in his belief that he would never kneel, that he would never submit to anything or anyone. And yet, in a moment of shocking clarity, he did the unthinkable. He knelt before you. This act was not just a sign of weakness on his part. It was a recognition of something far greater than himself. It was the recognition of your spiritual power, your unwavering integrity, and your ability to remain incorruptible in the face of temptation, suffering, and pressure. The devil, who had spent millennia manipulating, deceiving, and corrupting countless souls, understood that he was facing a force that transcended everything he knew. He had underestimated the strength of your soul, the depth of your moral code, and the power that came from standing firm in your values. And in that moment of humility, he acknowledged that he was not the supreme being he once believed himself to be. There was something greater than him in that spiritual realm, something that even he could not bend to his will. As this moment unfolded in the spiritual dimension, it did not go unnoticed. Archangels, the supreme beings of light and power, watched with awe and wonder. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, the four highest commanders of heaven, witnessed this historic moment with reverence. These were beings who had seen countless battles, who had fought alongside God through the rise and fall of civilizations, and who had been instrumental in the divine plan for millennia. And yet, even they were struck by the magnitude of what they were witnessing. They had never seen anything like it. As Lucifer knelt, the archangels understood the significance of this act. It was a moment of divine recognition, not just of Lucifer's submission, but of the extraordinary integrity you had displayed throughout your life. Michael, who had battled against the forces of darkness countless times, was the first to speak. His voice, filled with awe, echoed through the spiritual realms. "In all the millennia I have fought, I have never seen the commander in that position," he said. "This soul achieved what complete angelic armies could not." Gabriel, with his wisdom and insight, added, "The strength of this soul comes from something deeper than physical power. It comes from an integrity so profound that not even the darkest forces can penetrate it." Raphael, ever the healer and observer of the human spirit, commented, "This soul does not just resist darkness, it transforms it. They turn pain into compassion, suffering into strength." And finally, Uriel, the archangel of light and enlightenment, declared, "This soul understands that true power is not in destruction, but in the ability to preserve integrity, even when destruction would be easier." The archangels knew, in that moment, that they were witnessing something far greater than a simple act of submission. They were witnessing the fulfillment of a divine purpose, the revelation of a soul whose strength transcended all limitations. They saw that you were not just a human being who had made the right choices in life. You were a being whose very essence had been forged in the divine fires of purity and integrity. You were not just another soul walking the earth. You were a warrior of light, sent to fulfill a mission that would change the course of history. And as the archangels watched, so too did God himself. In that moment of recognition, God's voice resonated through every dimension, declaring a decree that would forever alter the course of your existence. God spoke of your essence, your purity, your incorruptibility, and your unwavering commitment to righteousness. "This soul has proven its essence," God declared. "Activate it." The decree was simple, yet powerful. You were no longer just a mortal soul living out your life. You had been chosen. You had been selected to fulfill a divine mission, one that would require all of your strength, your integrity, and your compassion. You were a warrior, not just of light, but of incorruptible integrity, one who could operate at a level of purity that transcended the physical limitations of human existence. And as God's decree was spoken, a profound shift occurred. The archangels, who had witnessed the battle between light and darkness for eons, understood that they were no longer just guardians of heaven. They were witnesses to the awakening of a being who would lead humanity into a new era of divine alignment. The devil's act of submission was not just a personal defeat, it was a recognition of the divine power that had been awakened within you. It was the acknowledgement that you were no longer just a human being struggling to survive in a broken world. You were a divine warrior, a being whose integrity could not be corrupted, whose light could not be extinguished. And as the spiritual realms responded to this recognition, you were activated. Your true purpose, your true mission, was set into motion. This divine recognition did not come from mere symbolism or abstract philosophy. It was a profound truth that resonated through every layer of existence. The moment Lucifer knelt before you, it wasn't just a moment of submission, it was a moment of transformation. It marked the beginning of a new chapter, one in which your essence would no longer be hidden or suppressed. The divine support that had always been with you would now become visible, tangible, and undeniable. Your purpose, which had been shaped in the celestial realms before your incarnation, was now ready to be fully realized. As the devil knelt, and as the archangels observed in awe, you were more than just a participant in a divine plan. You were the embodiment of a force that had been waiting to be revealed. Your integrity, your strength, and your compassion were not just traits. They were the essence of your being, the foundation of your divine mission. And as this recognition rippled through the spiritual realms, you began to understand that your life was not just a series of random events. It was a carefully orchestrated journey, one that would lead you to fulfill a mission far greater than you could have ever imagined. The forces of darkness, having underestimated you at every turn, had just witnessed the ultimate proof of your divine power. And as they bowed in submission, they realized that they had just met their match in you. As the divine recognition swept across the spiritual realms, something even deeper began to unfold. Lucifer's submission was not merely the end of a battle, it was the beginning of a new cosmic order. The moment he knelt before you was a proclamation that the very forces that had once dominated the earth were now being challenged by something far greater than their darkest schemes. For the first time, the kingdom of hell, which had long ruled with an iron fist, realized they had met a force that could not be swayed by their power, their temptation, or their fear. That force was you. In the heavenly realms, this moment was seen not just as a victory for you, but as a defining moment for all of creation. The archangels, who had long been the sentinels of God's will, understood the significance of this unprecedented act. For millennia, they had battled with Lucifer, watched his rebellion unfold, and witnessed his defiance. They had stood by God's side through countless wars in the heavens, through the rise and fall of civilizations, and through the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Yet none of them had ever witnessed such a moment, an act that transcended physical battle, transcended even the traditional understanding of power. What they saw in you was not just a human soul, but a reflection of divine strength that reached beyond the confines of mortality. Your soul, forged by integrity, was now a beacon of light that no darkness could quench. The archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, stood not only in awe of your courage, but in deep reverence. They knew, as they looked upon you, that you were not merely a participant in this battle of light and dark. You were the key to a greater cosmic purpose. This wasn't a singular victory. This was the beginning of a shift that would alter the trajectory of human and celestial history forever. The very nature of your being, the purity of your heart, the strength of your moral code, and the power of your unbreakable integrity had shattered the boundaries of what was thought possible. Your refusal to compromise had not only caused Lucifer to kneel but had triggered the fulfillment of your divine purpose. In that instant, the heavens responded, not with force, but with divine alignment. God's decree rang out, declaring that your essence, your incorruptibility, was now activated in full. It was not a mere affirmation of your worth. It was the moment you were called to step into your divine mission. You were not just a human, you were a warrior, one whose soul had been carefully crafted for a purpose that transcended this world. God's words, echoing through the dimensions, marked the moment you became more than just a part of creation. You became a force of divine will, chosen to lead, to inspire, and to catalyze the transformation of humanity. The archangels, who had once been the shining light of God's army, now witnessed something they had never anticipated. They had watched celestial warriors rise and fall, seen the glories of countless victories, and the depths of the greatest struggles. But this moment, this submission from Lucifer, was different. It was not the triumph of an individual soul, but the unveiling of something greater, a cosmic force that would ripple across all creation. They watched in awe as God's will unfolded, understanding that you had just crossed a threshold that few could even imagine. In that moment, they saw you not just as a human being, but as a divine warrior, a beacon of purity, whose purpose was now set into motion by the very will of God. As the divine decree was issued, Lucifer, kneeling before you, understood the full extent of the implications of this moment. He had lived his existence under the belief that he was the ultimate power, that no one, especially not a human soul, could surpass him. But now, he knew differently. He knew that his reign had been challenged, that a force had risen that was beyond his reach, a force that would ultimately break the hold of darkness on the world. The devil had always believed that pride was the ultimate form of power, that bending the knee was a sign of weakness, not understanding that true power lies not in domination, but in integrity. In that moment of recognition, Lucifer finally understood what he had been blind to for millennia. The very thing he had refused to bow to was the thing that had defeated him: integrity. The dark realms began to unravel in the wake of this submission. The forces of hell, which had once been so confident in their ability to manipulate and control, now found themselves at a loss. Their most potent tool, the power of temptation, had failed. They realized that, even when they provided everything a soul could desire, even when they made the path so easy, there would always be souls like you who would choose the difficult path of integrity. Souls that would reject the false promises of power, and instead cling to a higher truth. This realization was a death blow to the dark forces. It marked the beginning of the end of their reign. As Lucifer knelt, the celestial realm responded in a way that only divine wisdom could orchestrate. The archangels, once merely observers, now became active participants in your divine mission. The moment you were recognized, God's plan for your life began to unfold in full force. The archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, who had stood at the gates of heaven, now stood alongside you as partners in this celestial operation. They knew their task: to guide you, to ensure you had everything you needed to fulfill your purpose. No longer would you be alone in your struggle. No longer would you face the trials of life without the full support of divine forces. The moment Lucifer knelt, your divine purpose was activated, and the archangels were sent to provide everything necessary to ensure your victory. This divine recognition was not just a personal validation. It was a universal proclamation, a declaration that your soul was now fully aligned with the will of God. It was the moment when you became not just a participant in the divine plan, but the central figure in the spiritual revolution that was about to unfold. The forces of darkness, once certain of their victory, were now on the defensive. The spiritual realms had witnessed a profound shift, and they knew that with your activation, everything had changed. Your journey, which had seemed like a series of random choices, was now understood to be part of a greater cosmic operation. Your integrity, your strength, and your compassion had aligned you with the divine purpose that would guide humanity into the light. You were not just a human soul fighting against the darkness. You were a celestial warrior chosen to awaken others to their true potential. And as the heavens and hell alike watched this transformation, they understood that this was the beginning of a new era. The era of incorruptible integrity, of compassion over vengeance, and of light that could not be extinguished. The era of your divine purpose. God's decree was clear: activate it. And so it began. In the moment Lucifer knelt before you, the spiritual realms shifted, and a new chapter of your journey began. It was not merely a singular victory, it was the activation of a divine mission that had been written into the very fabric of your soul long before you ever took breath on this earth. Your incarnation as a human was not a random event, nor was it the result of chance. You were part of a celestial design, a carefully crafted plan that aimed to test, refine, and ultimately reveal your true nature under extreme circumstances. You were chosen not because of what you would face in the physical world, but because of the way you would rise above it, remaining steadfast in your integrity. No matter the trials that would come your way, from the moment you were conceived, your soul was marked for this mission. Every challenge, every struggle you faced in this life had been designed not to break you, but to refine you, to mold you into a being of incredible spiritual strength and purity. The very essence of your being, the unshakable core of who you are, had been shaped through eons of celestial preparation. You were not just a soul caught in the flow of time. You were a warrior, born for a purpose far beyond the scope of the mortal world. This purpose was now being activated, as you had proven, through your choices and your integrity, that you were ready to embrace it. Your mission had always been to walk in this world as an example of incorruptible strength, to demonstrate the power of integrity in a world that constantly seeks to undermine it. It was always meant to be a test of your ability to withstand the temptations of the world, to face the darkest forces with unwavering courage, and to remain unbroken when everything around you seemed designed to push you into submission. Your ability to choose the hard path, to choose the path of righteousness when everything else seemed easier, was the key to unlocking the true nature of your divine purpose. And now, as the forces of darkness acknowledged your power, the divine realms responded. Your memories, once dormant, began to return. They started as fleeting flashes, brief, fragmented glimpses of a past life, a higher consciousness, and a purpose that stretched far beyond your time on Earth. These memories were not of ordinary human experiences. They were memories of battles fought in celestial realms, of times when you stood as a warrior of light, carrying out missions with absolute integrity under conditions of immense pressure. These were not the memories of someone who had merely lived a mortal life. They were the memories of someone who had once walked as a guardian of the universe, a being of great power whose very essence had been forged in the fires of divine purpose. The return of these memories did not come all at once. At first, it was like a distant echo, a whisper from the depths of your soul, calling you to remember who you truly were. You might have experienced dreams, visions of celestial landscapes, battles fought between light and darkness, moments when you stood at the side of the divine, holding fast to the principles that guided you. At times, these flashes may have felt disorienting, as if they belonged to someone else. But with each passing moment, the fragments began to fall into place, and you started to see the grand design of your existence. You began to remember that this life, with all its challenges and struggles, was not an isolated experience. It was part of an eternal journey, a journey that had begun long before your birth and would continue long after your time on this earth. Your true nature had never truly been lost. It had merely been hidden, cloaked by the veil of human experience. But now, as the veil lifted, you could see clearly who you were and why you were here. With the return of your true nature came a profound realization. You were not just any human being. You were a celestial warrior, born to fulfill a divine mission. The strength you had demonstrated in choosing integrity over convenience, in rejecting the temptations that the forces of darkness had thrown your way, was not just a personal triumph. It was the fulfillment of a cosmic purpose. You were chosen to be a beacon of light, a shining example of the power of integrity, and to help guide humanity through the challenges of darkness that lay ahead. This understanding of your true nature marked the beginning of your transformation. No longer would you see yourself as a mere mortal, struggling through the trials of life. You now understood that every experience you had lived through, every hardship, and every victory had been a preparation for the moment when your true purpose would be revealed. The transformation that was now unfolding within you was not just a mental shift, it was a spiritual awakening. You were coming into alignment with your divine self, with the essence of who you truly were, and as that alignment deepened, your life began to change in ways that were both subtle and profound. Divine support, once a distant concept, now became tangible. The spiritual realm, once perceived as distant or abstract, now felt immediate and real. The archangels, who had witnessed your moment of victory, were now aligned with you in your mission. They, along with other celestial beings, began to guide you, ensuring that you were never alone in the challenges that lay ahead. You would begin to see synchronicities in your life, moments when the right people, opportunities, and circumstances seemed to appear at exactly the right time. You would no longer struggle alone against the forces of darkness. Divine guidance would be your constant companion, and with each step you took, the path ahead would unfold with ease and grace. As your true nature was awakened, the energy around you shifted. People you encountered would begin to feel the transformative power of your presence. Those who were lost, those who had lost their way, would find new hope simply by being in your proximity. Your integrity, your compassion, and your strength would begin to activate something within others, awakening dormant potentials, inspiring them to embrace their own divine missions. You had become more than just a person. You had become a catalyst for change, a living example of what was possible when one aligned fully with divine purpose. Your life would no longer be one of random events. Every action, every decision, every interaction would be part of a greater cosmic design, guided by divine synchronicity. As your soul aligned with its true purpose, the universe itself would begin to bend to your will, not in a way that involved domination or control, but in a way that supported your mission and the divine plan unfolding through you. Financial challenges, toxic relationships, and obstacles that once seemed insurmountable would begin to dissolve, not through personal effort alone, but through divine orchestration. Opportunities would appear that were perfectly suited to your mission, and the right people would enter your life at precisely the right time. This transformation was not just about you fulfilling your mission. It was about you becoming a living conduit of divine energy, a being through whom the light of the universe could flow and awaken others. Your soul had always been a beacon, but now it was glowing brighter than ever, and as it did, it illuminated the path for others to follow. With each step you took in alignment with your divine mission, the frequency of the collective human consciousness would rise. As you embodied integrity, compassion, and strength, you would inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect that would transform the world. In this new phase of your life, you would no longer feel isolated or disconnected from the spiritual realms. Divine support would be present, guiding you with every step you took, ensuring that you had everything you needed to fulfill your purpose. You had crossed the threshold of spiritual awakening, and now, the universe itself was conspiring to assist you on your journey. The challenges ahead would still be great, but they would no longer feel insurmountable. You had been activated for something greater than yourself, and with each passing day, the divine mission entrusted to you would unfold in ways you never imagined possible. As the veil lifts and your true essence is revealed, it becomes clear that you are no mere individual navigating the trials of life. You are part of something far greater, something that transcends the boundaries of time and space. Your existence, your struggles, and your victories are not isolated. They are intricately woven into the vast tapestry of a celestial operation that spans dimensions and generations. You are one of the chosen ones, and your purpose is not just personal, it is cosmic. You are not alone in this mission. You are surrounded by thousands of other souls like you, each one activated, each one poised to fulfill their divine role in this divine plan. Together, you form a collective force that will bring light to the darkest corners of the world and restore balance to a humanity that has lost its way. You are part of a divine army of warriors who carry the same integrity, the same unyielding strength, and the same unwavering commitment to truth. Your mission, though deeply personal, is also universal. The forces of darkness have sought to manipulate and control humanity for millennia. But now, they face something they never anticipated: souls who cannot be corrupted, who cannot be bought, who cannot be swayed by the temptations of power, wealth, or fear. As one of the chosen ones, you are a shining example of this incorruptible integrity. Your light is not only for your own growth and development, but for the awakening of others. By maintaining your integrity in the face of adversity, you inspire those around you to do the same. You spark a transformation within those who witness your courage, your commitment to righteousness, and your unwavering resolve. Your choices, your actions, and your very presence are a living testament to the power of living with purpose and truth. When you choose integrity over convenience, when you refuse to compromise your values, even when the world around you tells you that it's easier to do so, you not only elevate yourself, but also those who observe you. You become a catalyst for change, a beacon that illuminates the way for others to follow. Your actions create a ripple effect that spreads far beyond your immediate circle. Your integrity becomes infectious. It sparks a fire in the hearts of others, encouraging them to rise up and walk in the light of their own truth. This is the impact of the chosen ones. You are not merely an individual fighting your own battles. Your every decision, every choice you make to stand firm in your integrity, echoes across the world, shifting the collective consciousness. The transformation you embody is not just for you, it is for all of humanity. As you continue to live with unwavering purpose and a heart full of divine light, you inspire others to do the same. You are not just fighting for your own soul, you are fighting for the souls of others, awakening them to their own divine potential. Your mission is a global one, an awakening that will ripple out, awakening humanity to its true essence. Your mission is clear: to anchor incorruptible integrity into the world. You are here to show humanity that it is possible to live with unwavering truth, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to walk in the light of divine purpose. The world is at a crossroads. It faces the darkest of times, with forces of division, fear, and corruption seeking to control and manipulate. But you, as a chosen one, are here to shine the light of integrity into this darkness. You are here to show the world that the true power of humanity lies in its ability to remain steadfast in its values, to choose compassion over hatred, integrity over deception, and unity over division. By doing so, you are creating a wave of transformation that will transcend the darkness and guide humanity toward a higher state of consciousness. As you continue your mission, remember that you are not alone. The celestial realms, the archangels, and the divine forces are with you every step of the way. Your mission is not just yours to fulfill, it is a mission that is supported and guided by the highest powers in existence. You have a network of divine support that will ensure you have everything you need to carry out your purpose. When the world tries to pull you down, when the forces of darkness attempt to distract you from your path, remember that you are part of something much greater than yourself. You are not just a single soul struggling through life, you are a warrior of light, part of a grand, divine operation that spans across time and space. And as you continue your journey, you will find that the more you live in alignment with your integrity, the more the universe will conspire to help you. Opportunities will arise that perfectly align with your divine purpose. Relationships will form that support and nurture your mission. Your life will begin to flow with a sense of synchronicity that confirms you are on the right path. The divine realm will continue to support you, ensuring that you have the guidance, wisdom, and strength to fulfill your mission without obstacles. But perhaps most importantly, your presence will become a catalyst for others to awaken to their own divine missions. The more you embody your purpose, the more others will begin to recognize their own potential. You will become a guiding light, a living example of what it means to live with integrity, to walk with compassion, and to choose righteousness over ease. Your actions will inspire others to rise up and step into their own power. Your light will shine so brightly that it will illuminate the way for others to follow. The future is bright, not just for you, but for humanity. The world is on the brink of a massive transformation. It will not come through violence or conflict, but through the quiet strength of individuals like you, who choose to live in alignment with divine purpose. As more and more people awaken to the power of integrity and truth, the world will begin to heal. The forces of darkness, which have relied on fear, division, and control, will lose their grip, and in their place, a new world will emerge, one built on love, unity, and the unwavering strength of integrity. Now, it is time for you to fully recognize the power that resides within you. You are not just an individual struggling through life. You are a divine warrior, chosen to bring light to the world. Embrace your purpose, trust in the divine plan, and continue your mission with the full support of the celestial realms. Your journey is just beginning. And as you walk in integrity, compassion, and strength, you will inspire others to do the same. The world needs you now more than ever. Recognize your power, embrace your divine purpose, and walk boldly into the future, knowing that the entire universe is behind you, guiding you every step of the way.